I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start the meeting tonight, I'd like to have a moment of silence for all the families, the community, and the shooting victims in Florida. Okay. Roll call, Trish?
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja? Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to excuse Mr. Oja?
I'll make a motion. Support.
Is that Kramer?
Yes.
Pop?
Yep.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Is there any questions on the agenda? If not, I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I make motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Move on to approval of the regular meeting of February 5th, 2018. Any questions on the minutes? If not, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve minutes of the regular meeting of February 5th, 2018.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of the manifest 2018-04. Any questions, Scott, on the manifest?
Yeah, I just got two of them. Ray, on page 1 of 7, 2018 email archiving annual renewal for $1,100. Is it, what is that, yearly, or is that 2 years, or what is that?
Annual.
Annual?
That's
Okay.
yearly, yeah.
And I have one more, and I see these in the audience. I see on page 5 of 7, we have Peterson Welding thawing the water lines. We'd had two of them. One was for 100 and one was for 280. Is that by the hour? Is that how it's charged? Or how is that, why is that two different prices on that? Or is it not a flat rate?
I'd have to pull the bill.
Okay. That's all I got.
Question asked and answered.
Lee?
Page 1, professional services, Mile Anderson appraisal survey services. Which one is that for, Ray?
That's for the Marana case?
Oh, okay. And a little farther down, I'm assuming WPPI picked up the tab for the meeting lunch expense?
Yes.
Okay. And just one comment. I see last month we had to purchase a little over $46,000 in electricity, which is probably the highest it's been in quite a while. That's all I have.
My question was already answered. So do I have a motion on the manifest?
I'll make a motion, we approve manifest number 2018-04 in the amount of $309,866.53.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
At this time, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on any agenda items, you can do so right now. If not, we'll need a motion to go into public hearing.
I make a motion, we go into public hearing.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. Mr. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're holding public hearing tonight to review our 5-year Parks and Recreation Plan. The previous five-year plan was developed in 2013 and expires in 2018. The main emphasis for a five-year plan is that not only is it a good planning document for the community, but it also is a requirement of the Michigan Department of Natural Resources in order to qualify for their trust fund grant program, their parks, their passport grant program, and their land purchase program. Now, in order to qualify for this year's grant process and into next year, you know, we have to have this plan in their office by April 1st, and when we go through the scheduling, you know, we do need to start early in January, February, like today for the public hearing. We needed a 30-day notice to the public, which we did put out, and we did not receive any comments, but the plan was available online and at the City Hall and in the Norway branch of the Salmonston Library, or the Dix County Library. The main emphasis of the plan, it's not only going through our assets as from a parks and recreational standpoint for the community, but one of the main emphasis is that we identify projects in each of our parks for future, not only future planning, but also for the grant applications. So I guess at this point, I will open it up to questions from the council, the community, on the plan, the five-year plan. If it is acceptable, we do have later on in communications a resolution to pass, and then we will prepare the plan and send it to Lansing for their file, for their approval.
Does council have any questions?
I was on that committee, and all I can say is they put a lot of time and effort into it, and they did a good job.
Any public comments? Okay, should I go back and open?
Yeah, I just have one further comment. We actually started the update of the plan last year. I was contacted by QPAD, the Central Upper Peninsula Planning Agency, and a regional agency, and they had a grant to work with multiple jurisdictions, region-wide. So we took advantage of it. Normally this would, there would be expense in the actual planning portion of this and putting out a survey. There's a survey as part of this planning effort. And then I also want to comment that we appreciate the help that Coleman Engineering has given us in the last 30 to 45 days on getting the plan details down as far as the public hearing and sending to Lansing. So, you know, they did that to help us out. So I do appreciate their help.
Do I have a motion to go back into regular session?
I'll make a motion, we go back into regular session.
Support?
Mr. Menghini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brule?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
We'll move on to the presentation.
We're fortunate tonight to have the new executive director of the Dickinson Area Economic Development Alliance, Lois Ellis, with us tonight.
Welcome.
So,
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and meet all of you and talk a little bit about what the Dickinson Area Economic Development Alliance has planned and your participation in that alliance. We thank you very much for the contribution, the commitment that you did make to our efforts, and also for Ray's participation in particular in our infrastructure strategy group. Ray has been a key component of that group, helping provide information and sharing with the other municipalities that are participating too. So we appreciate his efforts. I do have a handout tonight that I'll leave with you. That kind of summarizes where the alliance is at this point. I came on board in December, so I'm just entering the third month here with the group. The alliance has been meeting in the various strategy areas. There are 5 strategies, and they're on this document that I'll leave with you, so I won't detail them each here. But those strategy groups have been meeting and deciding on activities that will help us meet our overall goals. And currently, they're finishing up some strategic planning efforts to really further detail what work they will undertake for the remaining of 2018, so that we will have a detailed roadmap that will show you what activities we're undertaking to help meet our goals. And there will be measurements for those activities as well, so that we will be able to show where we're making progress, where we're being successful, and maybe where we've tried some things that weren't successful, so that we'll have good information to go back and make our work plan going forward in successive years. It will be a living document that is continually revised, and we'll be able to build upon it as we go through the successive years that we hope to continue our efforts. You'll see a list of our board of directors on the handout I have for you. My contact information is there. I really hope to have an opportunity to meet and work with more of you individually or as a council. Please reach out if you have questions for me or have topics you would like to discuss. I'd be happy to engage and have more conversation with you. There's also a brief summary of some activities that happened in December and January, the first couple of months that I was on board. That is available for you there too. You'll see we have a new image when you get a chance to look at the document. Our marketing and branding strategy group has created a new look for our logo. We also have a brand new website at daeda.org, where you'll see a new image for the community, where we're going to better tell our story and the work that we're going to undertake. That website will continue to be built out with additional content as we go forward. So look for that. I'll also be starting to share a newsletter with all of our stakeholders. That should be forthcoming in about the next 2 weeks. And we'll make sure that you get that communication as well, so that you understand where your resources are being utilized to help better the community. With that, I'll leave you with these documents. I know Ray and I have had some conversations about some of the needs that the community, he sees that the community would like to see attended, and we will continue to tackle those topics together. In particular, probably housing and some other areas. Certainly talent attraction is a huge part of what our effort is. We want to retain the businesses that we have and help them be healthy, but we also want them to grow. So we're looking at ways to bring more talent into our area. We're working with the schools and other community partners to help make sure that we're telling the story of what's available here in our community and the wonderful job opportunities. I see some young people are here with us tonight in the audience, and certainly we want to get that message to the students in our schools that there are great job opportunities available. They can make a career and a life here that's very rewarding, and we want to make sure that they're getting that message, so we'll be doing that in a number of ways. One of the things you'll see on here is we have social media accounts now, hoping to reach some of those young people and sharing information through some of those new modern communication methods. So I'll leave them with the clerk. She can share them with you, and look to hear more from us in a newsletter coming soon. And I'm available should you want to speak to me individually. And Ray, I know we continue to work together and try to meet the needs of the city as well. So thank you very much. It's been a really great experience so far. Everyone's been very welcoming and helpful in the community, and I'm very much enjoying it. So thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Resolution 2018-03. Do I have a motion on that resolution?
I'll make a motion that Resolution 2018-03, City of Norway Parks and Recreation 5-year plan be approved.
Support.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of special events application for the Norway Spring Classic. Did anybody have any questions on that? That was in your packet. I know this is a yearly thing, so.
This is a great opportunity for our community.
Okay. Do I have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion that the special event application for the Norway Spring Classic be approved.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
I believe that's been going on for a little over 30 years. It might be even close to their 35th now.
And this year's date is April 21st. Same route. It's excellent.
And we'll move on to the approval special events application for the citywide rummage sale. Is there any questions on that?
That also brings a lot of,
People into our community?
What is our ordinance on the city signs now? I see they want to change that.
What we do is we actually, you just pass rescinding that ordinance per se for this event. However, there's still provisions on which, you need to, well, you rescind portions of it, but there's still a list of items that they have to adhere to. So temporary signs can be installed starting on Thursday and must be removed by Sunday. Signs shall not be placed on any permanent signposts, light posts, or utility poles. Temporary signs shall not be allowed on Main Street from 4th Avenue to Railroad Avenue, which includes the Pocket Park, bump outs, and US 2 Main Street intersection. All signs must have address clearly marked on the sign, and then violations of these rules will be removed. Signs violating these rules will be removed immediately by the police department and will be subject to littering ticket for the littering, per the littering ordinance. So when you make your approval, that's how you would prove it, by modifying. You're actually not rescinding the sign ordinance, you're just modifying it.
And I see the date on that is May 19th.
May 19th. One thing I can say is that each year we've passed those sign rules with the application, and we have limited issues, but it's not anything that's, I think it's more positive than anything, so it's excellent for the community. So.
Okay, do I have a motion on that?
I make a motion we approve the special event application for the citywide rummage sale.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
In that motion, we have modified the rules for that day.
Okay.
There's modifications to the rules.
Yeah.
Re-vote on it.
Just do it two parts.
Okay.
Do a second motion to modify the current sign regulations for the rules as
I make that motion. To modify the rules, or to modify the dates.
Second.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the Sturgeon Falls Hydraulic Runner Replacement Project contract.
Okay, last item under communications is, of course, our contract. If you remember, back late October, council approved moving forward, awarding Leadestro the project for our hydro runner replacement. Over the last couple months, we've been negotiating into the contract language, and we're happy to, or pleased to present to you the negotiated contract. The main items of negotiation involved bonding, and we looked at the language within the liquidated damages and the schedule. One item to note is that on the schedule, specifically, we are going to have the unit, our first unit, our Westinghouse unit, taken out of service in late October, and runners should be delivered sometime in November to early December, and then our goal is to have the installation complete by early February. There is some cold weather in that, but when we looked at the liquidated damages, our main goal is to avoid having, we need to have the unit by breakup, and typical breakup is April 1st or thereabout. We're going to get the exact date of the average breakup date, and we would apply that date to the contract. So it's going to be somewhere right around that April 1st date. As far as the Unit 2, we're going to, or we recommend having the schedule, we take the unit out sometime May, June, with a completion date by October 1st. So our liquidated damages date would be October 1st. Reasoning for October 1st is that we could have, usually, we get some late fall rains, could have a second run in the month of October, so we want to have the Unit 2 available for that secondary run. Grant has put in a lot of time working on the terms and conditions, the language, legal language. I don't know if, Grant, if you have any comments relative to that. And Lionel Lux from Leadestro is here all the way from Montreal. I'm glad we brought weather, or you have weather. So, and then Scott Klabunde from HCMS. Scott will be overseeing the construction field portion, and he's been, again, these guys have been invaluable and very appreciative in how we work together on getting through these issues, and they're here to answer any questions as well from council.
Just briefly, nobody really wants to listen to an attorney talk very long. I wanted to also reiterate and thank the council. I think I've thanked you each individually as well. One of the questions that came up in the past was this council approved the hiring of, I think it was, the name escapes me actually, it was our engineering firm out of Maine to assist and guide us a bit, Simutech. And because we don't have an engineer on staff, that group was essential in really helping us to understand some of the technical language. And also we had a number of really productive discussions with Leadestro through this process. They've continued to demonstrate that they're committed to helping the city of Norway. They're excited. They've been chomping at the bit to get this rolling and putting the finishing touches on this agreement through a lot of hard work, a voluminous number of meetings and conference calls, discussions, and going through the technical aspects of it. I believe that this contract represents a good agreement between both the city and Leadestro, listening to the council's concerns regarding some of the requirements, some of the concerns the council has brought forth in the past. As City Manager Anderson referenced, having some of these timeframes, working with both HCMS and Leadestro to be on the same page, working together to express our concerns, our requirements as a city, and working these into the contract. And there's been a lot of give and take and back and forth, and at this point, it's been a bit of a project to get here, but it's now before the council. We have both, again, Lionel and Mr. Klabunde here today, and I appreciate both of them traveling. We've put some finishing touches and met and discussed some things today as well, and eager for the city to move forward and get moving. One of the things I did note, and Ray and I chatted about this, I have the full contract here. It's about an inch and a half thick or so. One of the exhibits, the first exhibit, is the proposal that Leadestro put forth. We didn't attach, that was in previous paperwork, the contract, the previous paperwork with council packet. But other than that, the exhibits are attached to the council's packet for today to review. And at this point, I ask the council to consider approving it. If you have any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer them. And of course, Leadestro representatives and HCMS representatives are here as well.
Do we have any questions from the council?
I just have a comment here. I like the warranty issues without reading them, 9.2, 9.3, and 9.5. And I think that's very good, and that was part of the reason why we went with Leadestro. In the first place, the big item there was the 36-month warranty, 30-year warranty versus 2. That's all I have.
Ray, do we have a place to house these pieces that come from Leadestro?
They won't be, actually, the way we talked about the schedule, one of the reasons we're going to start disassembly in October is that we're going to do this before they ship. One of the original plans was they would ship, come to site, we would have a period of time of disassembly, and then we would have measurements, final measurements we'd have to take. Those measurements would then be given to a local shop, and the runners would go to a local shop, and final machining would need to be done at that shop. It's important to have those final measurements. So that would be a time when they would be sitting. What we discussed today was if we take the unit apart in late October, then we could take the measurements, send them back to their shop, the original shop. They could do the final machining and then send the runners completely ready to be installed. So as far as they'll be on site, as far as the lay down, they'll be there ready. Everything will be ready for when they come for installation. On Unit 2, it's going to be the same process, so they're not going to ship until the summer. So they won't be here waiting for, for that job to start. So I believe that everything we need is going to be down in the area. I know you guys had a chance to look at the site. I mean, I think we have plenty of room to handle that, so if I misspeak, by all means. Okay. Yeah.
So everything will go right down to the dam immediately?
That's the plan.
That's the plan. Any other questions?
I think that the spec sheets and everything are included in the first packet, and we'll receive all the spec sheets upon delivery of the parts.
Yes, we'll have a complete submittal phase, so we'll have all of that with their inspections, and we went through that in quite some detail, to make sure that we have all of those records. I have no questions.
Scott?
I have no questions. I'm excited.
Lee? All right, do I have a motion to approve the Sturgeon Falls Hydraulic Runner Replacement Project contract?
I'll make the motion that Sturgeon Falls Hydro Runner Replacement Contract with Leader Straw be approved.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
At this time, if there's anyone in the audience wishing to address the council, they may do at this time. State your name and address for the record, and you have a limit of 3 minutes per person. We have nobody. All right, we'll move on to mayor council comments. Lee?
I have nothing.
Okay. Brett?
I don't believe I have anything at this time.
Scott?
I have nothing.
Okay. And I have nothing. Ray?
I just want to thank two fellows sitting here tonight, working over the last couple months, and Grant.
Hey, Grant.
Definitely. There was a lot of work that went into getting this contract finalized. We, even with a couple months here that we worked on it, I think we pretty much secured our schedule, pretty close to the original. So I think that's, I really appreciate all the hard work. A lot of phone calls, on and off hours, so it's, we appreciate their
I'd
efforts.
like to thank you guys for that too, and I'd like to thank you, Grant.
Yeah.
I know it was kind of a
Yes.
long process, but glad it's come together.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Trish?
I do have one other, Ray, I know that we had received the email about the sidewalks. Has that been brought to Mr. Borga to check into, like the ordinances or?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, for a number of years, we've struggled with what do we do with snow removal on sidewalks, and well, our ordinance, when you look at our ordinance specifically, it deals with plowing and removal of snow off your driveways and placing that snow in vision triangle areas and other public places. Grant and I had a conversation about it last week, and you know, in looking at the details, you could infer that our right-of-way ordinance deals with, it says keep your sidewalks maintained. So could snow be considered maintaining the sidewalks? It doesn't specifically say snow removal. I think that it's more of a general, specific discussion point as to whether or not you want to impel or compel the residents to keep their boulevard sidewalks clear for walkers. I do know that every time that we've addressed these, we didn't really address sidewalk issues, we addressed more the corner issues, but we had quite an outpouring of issues, you know, when we enforced that. So, you know, that is definitely a public safety discussion that you might want to entertain. I know we did receive a complaint this past week. I did encourage them to reach out and have that discussion. So I know it's a hard discussion to have in a community because, and it's every community, if we talk about this with other northern communities. You know, it's a universal discussion, universal argument. The people, elderly, aren't able to shovel, you know, so how long do you give them, you know, so on and so forth. We did reach out a few years ago. We moved forward on the safer routes with our sidewalk machine, but that machine really operates mainly on US 2, Main Street, and then a few of the arterial routes to the school. You know, so we're not passing it through what I call the minor areas, the non-safe routes walk area. So open for debate, discussion on it, I guess is where we're at.
I think the big thing on it is most of your people with the plows, they'll clear out the sidewalk in front of somebody's house, and instead of pushing the snow on the boulevard or into their yard, they block the sidewalk. I mean, you can walk down the sidewalk when the snow's that deep, but when you run into a pile this high, you can't do it.
I think on the specific issue that we have received a complaint, it was actually someone that needed to come out and get exercise, and their physical condition was such that they could not go through snow. You know, it really did need to be cleared. And so, and then they went on the street and, you know, they were getting honked at or told to get off the street, you know, because, and it, you know, we want to encourage people to be off the street, but yet not providing them a place to walk. So I think that's a community discussion, you know, as to what we want to do, if we want to do something.
Just to follow up very briefly on Ray's comments and the questions or the comments brought up by Councilman Kramer. We did have a discussion regarding some of the sidewalks, and I guess that, frankly, as a public service, as your city attorney / prosecutor, you know, I think the bigger message is slow down and be tolerant of people walking on the streets, whether or not if they can't walk on the sidewalks. As a community, I hope we would slow down and respect people that are walking, getting out, trying to get exercise, some fresh air. I'm still getting complaints here and there about speeding and people driving quickly up in the school area, and I hope that people keep in mind, as we started with a moment of silence for children down in Florida, you know, when you have a school zone, please slow down, please be safe, watch for children, and if you're driving on the streets, we still have icy roads. This young lady that made the question or the inquiry regarding the sidewalks, I think it's well noted that a lot of the folks in our community are elderly, and it's hard for elderly and otherwise to get out and plow your sidewalks, shovel your sidewalks. So I hope that our busy lives aren't so busy that we can't slow down and give some people some deference and be courteous to others as they're walking on the streets. So a little bit of a public service, and also please just continue to slow down and be careful with the kids in the school zone. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make motion to adjourn?
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.